This is Mobile Music Thursday. I'm Jason Jones. Thanks for tuning in here on DJNTV. Tonight we got a great slate planned for you. Of course, we're going to be talking about what's trending on Billboard, the most downloaded on iTunes, as well as what's being played the most on the radio. And then we're going to check in with Jeremy Landby of the Undertakers, who primarily does high school functions and school dances. And he's going to be kind of doing a preview of what he's going to be expecting to be playing a lot of as the prom season just gets kicked off. And I know that a lot of DJs are really getting ramped up and ready for a crazy busy prom season, as it's that season, the end of winter, beginning of spring. Yay, prom. So let's get started with the charts tonight. It looks as though that the songs that have the most in common amongst the three charts that are really trending to be the most popular, Katy Perry is still holding with Dark Horse, which is one of those songs that's a pretty good bump and grind tune to kind of mix in and out of. Maybe not the front from beginning to end, unless it's showing up as one of those that's popular enough that they just want to sing along to the entire thing as it plays. Speaking of sing-alongs, of course, coming in at number 2, these are all within the top 5. Lorde is still coming in with Team, and that's another one of those sing-along songs where they can't get enough of just roaming around singing along to that song. And Feral Happy is probably going to be around for quite a while as it being a really fun tune. What the burn level is on that we'll have to see in the next 3 months or so, or 4 months, and see how that goes. If it's just going to be a flash of popularity, or if this is going to stick around and be a song like Usher, Yeah, or some of those other standards that have like really endured and lasted along and really kind of stick it out in our playlists. Also showing up, of course, Jason Derulo is hanging out in the top with Talk Dirty still being really popular, and also hanging out in the top 5 we see Pompeii by Bastille, which it'd be interesting to talk to different DJs and see how that is actually working as a dance floor song, or if it's not working. Because because a song is popular in the top 10 or the top 5 doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be work that well on the dance floor or be popular enough to pull people out to want to be able to dance to it and that sort of thing. Top iTunes downloads, Happy is still up there, just like that, as well as the Let It Go, which is that song from Frozen, still holding out as being incredibly popular and widely downloaded. But I have my doubts in terms of like how much it's really widely being used at dances. We'll have to see what it does at school dances. And of course, Aloe Black with The Man has been really popular, just starting to come down from the number 1 spot in downloads, which I bet if somebody mixes a really good beat behind that's going to be a really great dance tune as well, with how popular he's been thanks to Avicii and Wake Me Up when that all came out. And so that's pretty much how the most popular songs in the country are shaping up between downloads and radio play and sales right now. Some sad news in the industry, actually. DJ and producer Frankie Knuckles died at the age of 59, and if you're not familiar with Frankie Knuckles, you're going to want to be as a DJ, just because he's pretty much legendary, known as the godfather of house music. We've all heard of house music, and he is where it came from. Longly credited as being one of the founders of the post-disco Chicago house scene, and he's believed to have died of complications from diabetes, according to Billboard magazine. He was the musical director of the South Loop nightclub called The Warehouse, and thus where it came from, like, hey, play some of that house music, let me hear some more of that house music. And so house has become pervasive around the globe, and he has inspired many talent. In fact, the mayor of Chicago actually even did his eulogy. It was such a big impact that he made on so many people in an industry and then so many people's lives. So a famous DJ making a big mark. Rest in peace, Mr. Knuckles. May those that stand in your shoulders do great things and do you proud. So let's move on to our interview portion. Tonight we're talking to Jeremy Landby. Jeremy Landby is the owner of the Undertakers school dance DJ company. He's his offices are located just outside of Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, but he plays all over the Midwest. And I should mention he also does weddings as well, but primarily school dances. And he is ramping up for the prom season, and so it's going to be really exciting to see what he's planning on playing at his prom dances that are coming up very soon here. All right, well, welcome to the show, Jeremy. It's really exciting to have you on Thursday Night Music on Disc Jockey News TV.
You bet.
So as you can tell, this isn't actually being recorded at night, or you just have a lot of natural light lamps going on in your.
A lot of natural, yeah. It could be nighttime. I'm upstairs and there's
right
no
in an
windows,
undisclosed
so
location.
in an undisclosed location, exactly.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, we want to keep our sources secret, so this works out really well
Perfect.
for us.
Wonderful.
So anyway, so I'm curious now. You're kind of moving into prom season, really crazy, right?
Yeah, our first prom starts this Saturday. We're actually going to set up for the prom tomorrow. Yeah, we're very very booked up with proms this year. Next weekend we've got a couple, and then of course Easter, and then after that it really hits hard up until about the 17th of May.
Wow. So as you're going into prom season and you're looking at like the music that you're going to be playing and what you think is going to, hit the hardest in terms of like the newer music that's coming out, in the last 6 months, because I don't do high school dances per se anymore, but is it still
Sure.
true that pretty much that they're most interested in what like is bleeding edge new?
I would say yes. Our mix of music is probably 75% top 40, maybe a little tiny bit of country in there, and then we'll have some oldies. And when I mean oldies, I'm talking about late 90s, early 2000s. That's oldies to these kids.
Right.
For us, that's weird. Oldies
Right,
to
that
me
was
is
just a couple
50s.
decades ago.
Yeah, that's a 50s and 60s song as an oldie to this guy, but for a high school student now, something from the 80s is way before they were born. That's when their parents usually are in high school, or even before they were in high school. So oldies for these kids are 90s, early 2000s. Some of those songs do work depending on the school. I'm usually sticking to, the classic 90s, maybe your Ice Ice Baby, your Cotton Eye Joe still. Some
Okay.
of those songs will still work. But when we throw in Usher, yeah, that's an oldie to some of these students. And
Sure.
it's a big song still, being 10 to 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What are
yeah.
what would be some like say not like Usher? Yeah, is kind of like a real obvious one. That's one that really kind of I think will endure for a long, long time as a really go-to hook song that will get people
Absolutely.
excited. What are some others that maybe aren't as well known? Like does Belle Biv DeVoe bring them out, or Motown Philly, or any of that?
No, they don't know those songs. I went out on a limb and played Young MC.
Uh huh.
Uh, Help me out here. Bust a move.
Bust a Move, yeah,
Uh,
from the late '80s, early '90s.
yeah, late 80s, early 90s, right around the Tone Loc time. And played that, played about 2 minutes, and I had, out of 200 students on the dance floor, I had maybe 40 left.
Oh
Uh,
no!
they just don't know those songs. And once in a while, they may hear something that's been on TV. Of course, their parents might listen to something, but for the most part, it's top 40 all the way.
Wow. Well, what are
Yeah.
some? I mean, other than are there any that you can think of other than that off the top of your head, other than yeah, from Usher? So we're probably looking at like 1995 and onward.
I'd say 95 and onward. Yeah. Like I had mentioned, Cotton Eye Joe, that's early 90s,
Hmm.
90, 92. Um, Once in a while, I'll throw in, I love rock and roll. Uh, Depending on my crowd, depending on what I think I can get away with. When I've got 1,000 students in front of me, there's a lot of songs that I would love to play. Some of those oldies, some of those 80s and 90s songs that I love, that I would just love to throw in there. But do I have the balls to do that? Well, in
Well,
front of 1,000 students, it's very, it really depends on my group.
yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like they're not necessarily very forgiving in terms of like if they don't know it, relate to it, they walk away. Versus burying something in a set where you've got them really excited on this first one and the second one, and then you throw in something experimental and they just go with it because it sounds good or it has a good hook.
Once in a while that'll happen. A few years ago, I played Devo Whip It,
Uh huh.
and it worked.
Oh
I mean,
wow.
at school, and I would say probably 30 to 40% of the students had heard of the song,
Uh huh.
but had never obviously danced to it. But it worked fine. There is some circumstances like that.
Would you say it worked because of where you placed it in your set with what you had around it? You know, would it have worked if it was a lead song?
No, I don't think so. I had played YMCA. I had the students all, obviously going crazy for
Uh-huh.
YMCA. I had thrown in a remix of, I believe the 95, 96 remix, Entrance Staying
Oh,
Alive.
say that again. I
That
didn't hear
worked
that.
out well. Entrance Staying Alive,
Oh,
right
sure.
around that 96, 97 time. And then I went right into Devo from that, and it worked. It was gold. Those circumstances don't really come around too often because usually it's got to be top 40, like I said, or nothing else. And it also depends on the dance.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing a prom is going to be a different than a snowfest or a homecoming. Homecoming, I want to stick to almost all top 40 because it's the beginning of the school year. Those students are excited to be there and they're
Mm-hmm.
excited to hear all the hits that they heard all last summer.
Yeah.
And they want to dance to those songs. So,
And
yeah.
kind of relive the summer. Well,
Yeah,
let's talk about top 40 since that's going to be really the mainstay of everything that you're playing. So now
yes.
you're coming into the spring out of winter dances and that sort of thing. So what do you think the top currents are going to be that are going to be definitely on the top of your list that you think is going to make them go crazy?
Well, I'm looking at a few right now, just going off my list of some of my charts. I really like the Avicii stuff. Hey Brother is a great song. It's a great video. We do, I would say, 80% of our shows are music video related, so we can play obviously that video. It's very
Mm-hmm.
clean. Do the kids go crazy over it? Not so much. They probably more or less just sing along with the song, watch the video kind of in awe. Going back on my list, Timber, huge from this past winter
Yeah.
with Pitbull and Kesha. That'll be another one that'll be real big at prom this year, I'm sure. There hasn't been a hit out like that since this past winter that's been that type of song.
Sure.
Talk Dirty is probably one of my biggest songs right now. That's Jason.
Derulo.
Yeah, 2 Chainz. Probably our biggest song right now, and it just because it's catchy, everybody knows it with the high school kids, and the video's clean. It's a good video to play.
Right. It's funny how much is based like, yay, a clean video. We can actually show
Exactly.
this.
Yeah,
You almost
that's
wish they would
huge.
shoot two versions for you.
Go ahead.
Said you almost wish that they would shoot two versions for you.
You almost do. Yeah, you get some that are very raunchy. And usually, with promo only and some of the others, we'll get an edited version, but still, I have to edit it basically with the Pioneers on the spot, whether visual or audio. And the Pioneers make that very easy.
Oh,
So,
wow, nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's
So that's nice.
a capability I wasn't even aware of. So that's something
Yeah,
something to
yeah,
look
it
at
works.
when you're considering what you're setting up for your sets. So how do you usually run your sets? You said you just play like a little bit of country. Are slow dances more of a big deal during the prom than they are during homecoming or any other dance at high schools?
They are, absolutely. I have been in some schools where there's nothing but couples, obviously, for prom because most of the time you want a date or you have a date.
Sure.
But I've been in some schools where it's almost maybe a smaller North Dakota town, a smaller Minnesota town,
Mm-hmm.
South Dakota, Wisconsin, and they want nothing but slow dances because it's prom and they're dressed up.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't get a whole lot of that very often, but once in a while, once in a blue moon, I'll have a prom out of the whole year where it'll be, I would say, 25% slow dances, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm usually playing a set of 3 to 4 to 5 fast songs, mixing together, of course, and then putting in a slow song somewhere in there, depending on my dance floor, depending on my crowd. So,
Sure. Awesome.
yeah.
All right. So the big home runs are going to be Timber by Kesha and Ensemble, and then of course pulling out Usher, yeah, from the 1990s. Otherwise, so the rest of the top 40 that you're going to fill it out with, is that all from like say the past 2 years?
Top 40 that I'm going to fill out, I would say, within like I would say the last year.
The last year.
It's going to be very current, very current things. I mean, I played Safe and Sound by
Imagine
the band
Dragons.
Escape. me. No, not Imagine Dragons.
Oh, right. Republic.
Everyone at home is screaming it, and I just can't remember off the top of my head. I'll pull it up here in a second. Yeah, I don't have it here.
I'm blanking too. Everybody's like shouting at the screen right now. It's
this! It's this! You guys are retarded!
Yeah,
Capital
the vapor
City.
lock. This is why we have
Capital
preset
Cities,
lists.
yeah. So I threw in Capital City Safe and Sound.
Capital
thinking,
Cities.
yeah, and it may be a little bit too old to play it at some schools. I don't know if I would get into much of that song for prom this year, just because it might be a little bit too old for something else. This very big song at homecoming time, but now during prom, it might have fallen off the radar of a lot of the kids.
Sure. What about songs that aren't really dancey but seem to be like crazy popular, so they just wander around and sing along to them? Like I'm thinking like the Lord songs.
Oh, yeah, that and Roar by Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Another big song this past summer and fall where you can't dance to it, obviously.
No.
We did have a couple of mixes, but they didn't really work out well. So you'd play it, and they'd all be on the dance floor singing along, having a good time with their friends. That's kind of what it's all about.
Sure, it's just kind of like, woo, partying to this song just because they love it so much.
Exactly.
What's
when
the
I play it,
Go ahead.
Probably. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what's the life of those of songs like that usually for you? You know, because it's like they reach the point where it's not that popular. They don't necessarily want to sing along to it anymore, and it's not danceable.
I would say 6 months tops.
6 months?
Tops. Yeah,
either,
if that. I'm going through a couple of different songs on my charts, and yeah, I would say that's got maybe 6 months. I would probably not play that song at a big high school for prom this year. Just a big hit, like.
Just a big hit.
Are you still with me? Like it was last fall.
Oh, sure. Right. Cool. Well, Jeremy, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate you taking the time out, especially as you're ramping up for your huge prom season. Let's check in with you about midway through and see kind of how it is going and how things are measuring up with what you predicted and what you're actually experiencing out there.
That sounds perfect. I would say about that first week of May, maybe May 1st would be a great time to catch up with me. And by that time, I'd have already 4 proms behind me, myself, and my crew having 15 proms behind them. So, yeah, that would be a great time to catch up, and we'll see how we're doing. Like you said, mid-season. So.
All right, great. Well, have a great, fun season.
Hey, thanks so much, Jason. You too. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in this week. Next week, we'll be back with more Mobile Music Thursdays. Hey, let us know what you think is working for you right now. What songs are you being surprised by that people are requesting? And what new songs are people getting out and dancing to that maybe you wouldn't expect it to? Or just what are the new songs that you're starting to add to your frequently played list because a lot of people are asking to it or reacting to it really well? You can put that on the Disc Jockey DJNTV Facebook page. Just go ahead and leave it on that page. We'll all be interested to see what you have to post. Until next week, I'm Jason Jones.